there are times you're going to just sit there and cry and
Yeah.
go, what in the world? What did I do wrong? What can I do better? You even may go to, oh, I'm a horrible mom. I've thought that more than once,
Oh, me too.
but
Mhm.
there's a light at the end of the tunnel and you will get through it. And I wouldn't change our experiences because they got us to where we are now.
Welcome back to Mother's Guide Through Autism podcast. I'm really happy to have Jeannette Paxia here today. She is someone that I met through Superheroes on the Spectrum, a wonderful book that she and her co-author, Dr. Crystal Morrison, have made a compilation of wonderful, emotional, educational stories put together by at least 30 people that are either on the autism spectrum or they themselves are parents. And it's just about all of our journeys. Joseph and I are part of this masterpiece, and I call it one because I think it has really, the feedback that I've been getting, it's really touched a lot of lives, including mine. I get emotional when I read some of these stories in Superheroes on the Spectrum. So Jeanette not only has co-authored and got this beautiful book together, but she's also a multi-time #1 international best-selling author. She is an empowerment speaker and a coach for women and children. And I know she's passionate about helping people because through so many of our conversations and you all will see that in this interview, that is really what her passion is just helping people through her work, her stories. I had the great honor of meeting her son, Jacob. She also has a Jacob. And Joseph and Jacob got to meet when we were in New York. So that's how we really connected through the book, but also just getting to see each other in New York to promote the book. So it was a really cool trip. With all that said, welcome to the podcast, Jeanette.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I've been wanting to be on this podcast forever, and we appreciate yours and Joseph's contribution to the book. Your stories inspired me. I also get emotional every time I read this book and all of the stories. And it was so nice meeting you both in person and walking on the streets of New York, going to Times Square, seeing our book up there. Little cold, but it was awesome. It was nice to be there.
Yeah, it was a really great experience. Not just for me, but also to watch our two sons, who are both adults on the autism spectrum, and how they connected. And yeah, it was just a really great experience in meeting the other families too. I'm so glad you're here to tell your story because I do believe you have because our podcast is all about knowledge, hope, and inspiration. And definitely you hit all three of those. And so I want to begin with your personal journey and tell us about your son, Jacob. I know we already talked a little bit about him, but the experience of getting his autism diagnosis.
So Jacob is 23, and it took years for us to be able to get his diagnosis. I think he was about 11 by the time we got it. It was multiple other diagnoses, and I had to fight for everything where they would sit there, the specialist, quote, quote, specialist, and I'm in medical, so I understand, how difficult it can be to diagnose somebody, but would tell me there's nothing. And I just knew that there was something different, not bad, but different. The way that he would perceive other people. He could be as loud as he wanted to be, but when other people were loud, he'd cover his ears. He'd line up things and was very upset if things got out of place. He socially, he would stick right by me, very loving, always been very loving, but just just was different than other kids. And I'd try to get him evaluated, and first we'd get, a diagnosis of ADHD, and then he had OCDs, although I'm not quite sure where in the line that came in. It could have come in after the autism diagnosis. But finally, after years, we got the autism diagnosis, and it kind of made sense then and put everything together. As probably many of your audience knows, most of the time it's not just an autism diagnosis, right? It's multiple diagnoses that come with it. It's not always, but a lot of times. And so it was a struggle. It was a struggle. And I was happy when we got the diagnosis because it gave me power to then be able to help him move forward.
Yeah, yeah, it's complicated, right? Because it's a heartbreak, but then at least okay, this is what the deal is, and I, as his mom, now know what to do, right, to help him. I know that you've had some challenges, and as we all do, lessons you learn along the way. What have some of those been?
I think that probably the biggest challenge and lesson I learned was really to continue advocating for him when I knew that there was something that we needed to look more into. And whenever I would take him to school and things would happen at school and I had to advocate for him at school, it was the challenges that continued to allow me to advocate for him. And that was a huge lesson. Sometimes standing up for yourself can be difficult, but standing up for your children is a little easier in a way, right? Because it's someone else and they're depending on you, but it's important. And when you have specialists and you have teachers telling you that you're incorrect and you have to continue advocating, that can be difficult. So understand that you know your child and that you can help them and that they deserve to get what they need. He needed extra support at school. The psychiatrist at school ended up, I believe I did talk about this in the book, ended up apologizing to me because at first he told me I was very incorrect and then ended up coming back and saying, you know what, you were right. I should have listened to you. But he needed extra help to test. Very, very smart, but needed that extra time. A lot of times he had trouble processing. So writing what came to his brain down on paper was very difficult, but he could tell you and he could recite it. So he just needed extra time and other ways of testing and that time to process through.
Mhm.
Otherwise, what he'd do is he would disrupt the class because he was frustrated.
Mhm.
He was a big child. He could get under a desk and pick it up. He could, just make noises and be the clown of the class. And so continuing to advocate for your child when you know them and believe that there's something else out there they need. That's probably the biggest lesson I learned. Challenge and lesson.
Yeah. I having met him when you were telling me about those challenges that you had with him, and that he is just, they're both big guys, and I who I met was so kind and mellow and I can't imagine him being angry or throwing fits or that sort of thing, because he's such a great guy. And so
He is.
you did, yeah, kind, kind, kind. You did advocate. I know some other moms, that I talk to and that I help really struggle with having, a big guy that throws a fit or whatever. What is what was something that really helped you help him? Because it is out of frustration. We all get it, right? But what really helped him?
It is out of frustration. And I think a lot of times in classrooms and stuff, and I know you've been in the world of schools, it's not understood that it's frustration. I think understanding him helped. And I will say, honestly, puberty was very, very difficult because he seemed to get a lot worse then. And getting to know your child and what works best for them, because every person is different. Every autistic person is different, and what works for one may not work for the other. And so finding out what works for them to calm them down. Do you need to remove them from the situation? Do they need like to have earphones or something that helps them? What works for them so that they can calm down, and giving them that space to do that. But it was years of challenges before we figured it all out.
Mm.
I'm not going to say, there was one meltdown and then we were like, oh, okay. And, we fixed everything. It didn't happen. It was years of challenges, but he is the kindest, most loving person. He cares about people a lot calmer now. He's able to just sit down and review and understand. He understands people way more than I do. And I'm a coach. I mean, I get people, but he has this innate ability to be able to read people and understand what they need. And maybe that's from processing his own needs. But it's just the patience, take time and patience, and know that we can figure out together what works for them. Involve them in it.
Yeah, I think it's so scary, as a parent, and I agree. I think the lesson there is that you will figure it out. Be patient. There is a why and a reason for everything, and just keep trying different things until you do find what works for your child. But I think so many moms that I talk to, they just get so overwhelmed, and it's scary. And yes, it is, but look, you've got, you're Jacob, Joseph. If somebody would have told me during those deep challenges that we would be where we're at today, I would have doubted it too. You know,
I
just
would
don't give up.
absolutely have doubted it. And know that we understand you, and that there are times you're going to just sit there and cry and
Yeah.
go, what in the world? What did I do wrong? What can I do better? You even may go to, oh, I'm a horrible mom. I thought that more than once.
Oh, me too.
But
Mhm.
there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you will get through it. And I wouldn't change our experiences because they got us to where we are now.
Yeah. And now you're helping so many people because of all of that, right? Uh,
Exactly.
so what inspired you to create the book Superheroes on the Spectrum?
I love writing. I've always loved writing. I think it's my ninth book. And writing about things that are going to help other people are extremely important to me. And I kept reflecting back. This book was in my head for many, many, many years, and I was waiting for the right opportunity and time. But we were in a store. Jacob was having a meltdown in the store, and a person came up to me, a lady came up to me and told me that I need to beat my child. And it caused many emotions in me. For one thing, I'm stressed out already. I don't need your input or your comments. But that people are not aware of how to handle these situations, and we really need to educate people. And that was a main reason that I wrote this, is so that people have an understanding of neurodiversity, of autism, and what does help and what doesn't help. And you know just making comments like that, I will tell anybody who's listening, that doesn't help. It doesn't help in the situation. Well, it did spark this beautiful book, but it doesn't help that mom, and she doesn't need it. She doesn't need the judgment and even if you judge away from her, because we don't need it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have so many things that pop up for me when you're talking about that, of experiences that I had that were similar to that with Joseph. And, obviously your kids having a meltdown, and yeah, it doesn't, and that's, in A Mother's Guide Through Autism, I wrote a prayer. And one of the things is, please forgive those who don't get it, right?
Right.
And then also forgive me for times that I've not gotten it, right? So
Oh, I love that.
yeah, we just need to, I agree with you so much. There's so much education that we're trying to, and that's why I call this book a masterpiece. When I said that earlier, is because it does such a great job of really educating folks because you have so many different stories in
Stories.
there and so many different levels on the spectrum, and so individual. But one thing we all have in common is that it is a gift and it's also a painful struggle all in one thing. I got that out of every single story in that book.
Every story that, Crystal and I had a little bit of trouble getting the people together for the book. I mean, we had some people that immediately were like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And some people that ended up pulling out at the last minute. But as I look at it now, I realize the people that were supposed to be in it are in it. And it truly is a gift to those who take the time to read it, because you will learn something,
Yeah.
whether you're part of neurodiversity or not. Well, we all know people who are neurodiverse. I'm neurodiverse because I've ADHD. But understanding others and seeing their struggles, but seeing that they got through them.
Mhm.
I am so very proud of this book, and I am so thankful and grateful to every person who took the time to write and be in it and share their stories. Because a lot of the people who wrote in this have never written a book, never written in a book, never published an article. This is their first time at doing this. And they trusted us enough to help them put this out. So this book, in many, many, many ways, is a gift. And I'm very proud that it came out when it was supposed to come out. I absolutely believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was, well, I do believe in divine intervention, and for
Me too.
sure, Joseph and I being a part of it, I really felt was absolutely divine intervention. It has really expanded what we're all trying to do,
Mhm.
right? Trying to help other people. And so if you haven't gotten Superheroes on the Spectrum book yet, I highly recommend it. And I want to make it clear, like Joseph and I are not really making any money. Well, I'm advocating this because I know it needs to get out there, and I know it's going to help people. So if those of you listening, if you haven't gotten it yet, you can get it on Amazon. And and we'll get to at the end of the podcast how you can reach out to you, Jeanette, and tell us how this book's helped you. Get it out there. I think this is one of those books that is taking its time to really get up to a number one
Mhm.
bestseller, but I know that's your goal and it's my goal too, because it needs to
It
be.
is. It is my goal, and it's my goal because I know that it's really, really good and needs to be in the hands of people. And anybody that publishes a book thinking that they're doing it to make a bunch of money probably needs to change that mindset a little bit. That's my
That's for
suggestion.
sure.
It doesn't often turn out that way, but that doesn't mean, it can't. But it's about making this book a bestseller so that we know that it's in the hands. Every person that I've run into, I just came back from a PTA conference, and every person that saw the book, oh yes, I'm an autism mom. Oh yes, my niece or nephew is a diagnosis of autism. I mean, and oh wow, what a great concept. Can't wait to read it. And the people who've read it, this helped me. I cried. I learned something. That just tells you how important it is. And it's not about making money. It's about getting it out there.
Exactly, exactly, exactly what we're trying to do. Spread knowledge, hope, and inspiration. And I mean, I have been on this journey for 32 years, and that the book touched me. And I learned too. So I
Me
think
too.
it's just that's what's cool about it. That's what I love about it. I want to shift a little bit, although this definitely happens within our autism community. When you were a child growing up, you were bullied.
Yes.
And I know that you facilitate and you're a huge advocate for the anti-bullying program that you have. Would you share that and tell us about that?
Sure. So yes, I was bullied for 4 years as a child. I was bullied because my parents moved my school, and we went into a school that was everyone was wealthy. But my dad was a forklift driver, and we were not wealthy, and I didn't realize that. I thought we were just fine. I had no idea, but I had wore a particular pair of shoes that first day I was there, and that was it. So for 4 years, I was bullied, and then actually as an adult, I was bullied for a couple of years. It also affects adults, 49.8 million American adults, so you wouldn't be surprised, as well as those who have unique abilities, as I call them. So we've all experienced bullying, we've all seen bullying, and it's really an epidemic, and it's gotten a lot worse with cyberbullying. My mission is to stop bullying because I think that it would just fix a lot of things if people were more self-confident and had just more self-recognition of their abilities and understanding, and we're able to focus on that instead of what other people are doing. It goes back to judgment, right? Judging others. And a lot of times people focus on those who are being bullied, which I do. But what about the bullies? A lot of times they're bullies because they need that self-confidence or because that's what they've learned or seen. So working with both and creating what I call an armor of self-confidence, no matter who you are, so that you don't allow bullying to affect you and we can stop this epidemic. It's really important. So it's one of my missions. It does go along with the book and everything else, but it's getting everybody to understand that they're here for a reason and they're important and they have something to offer the world and that they really need to start with loving themselves.
Yeah, yeah. An educator, and again, I taught everything from preschool through high school, and
Thank you for
that's
that, by the way. I think that our educators do not get enough recognition. So thank you for all of that service.
oh,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I
no,
think it's important to say that. We need to thank our teachers.
yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's not, the typical, oh, you get your summers off. Yeah. No, it is a calling. I think most
Mhm.
teachers would tell you that. And what I witnessed as a teacher when I did see bullying, I agree with you. It's usually the kid that was causing the bullying came from a home that wasn't great. And I think that that's not an excuse. It's not cool, to bully, but they were bullied at home is the way I look at it, because the parents can be bullies to their children.
Yes.
And there was a lot of conflict in that household. However, watching my son get bullied because I would be in the lunchroom because I was a teacher the same time Joseph was in high school. It just worked out. It was weird. Didn't plan it that way. However, I would watch it, and it is one of the hardest things to watch your child being
Mhm.
bullied.
It
And
is just
yeah,
experienced with our youngest one.
yeah,
You have to arm them with their own because you're not always with them. So you can't always protect them. Of course, they're bigger than me anyways, but you can't always protect them and you're not always there. So you have to arm them with that power to protect themselves and to understand their own self-worth.
yeah,
And unfortunately, not everybody gets that from their home. Sometimes it is the teacher that teaches that or the other people in their lives because they're not getting that from their home.
no,
So it's important. And unfortunately nowadays it gets even worse because of the violence,
yeah,
that goes along with it. I mean, 75% of school shootings happen because someone was bullied and they come back to retaliate. That shouldn't be happening at
no,
all. We should not be sending our kids to school and worrying about having to ensure that someone's not going to come there with a gun and shoot. I mean, that's a whole other, topic, but it's protection and creating human beings that not only have self-worth but grow up to give back to the world. And people that have that self-confidence and self-love are more likely to do that than others.
I agree. It's like that movie, and I loved it, but The Breakfast Club.
Oh, yes, yes. How
If you
many
haven't
times?
watched it, yeah,
A few times. I watched it a few times.
yeah. But I would on when we would have some free time, that was one of the movies that I would show the kids because I think it really gives the inside scoop somebody may appear to have it all, and when
Mhm.
in fact
They don't.
no,
Outside appearances can be very, very deceiving.
exactly. And so, for our kids that have, when you're on the spectrum, socialization is tough. And I watched Joseph over and over again be a victim of it in many different ways. And so, what, and you have too. So, what advice do you have for moms that are early on this journey, that they know their children are being bullied? Like, what's something that they could do?
Well, the first thing is knowing. You have to know, right? And so creating that open communication as much as possible with your child so that they do feel like they can come to you with this information. Second, you need to figure out what the school has in place for bullying. So if it's at school, right? What do they have in place for anti-bullying measures? Is there something that they have so that they can help you? Because they should have an expert or someone there. And really focusing on your child's unique qualities and helping them to understand their self-worth
Yeah.
and their self-love. So focus on those qualities. Ensure that they know how much, you love them. Ensure that they know how special they are. Sometimes as parents, we're so busy being busy because we have a lot going on that we don't realize that our kids don't, know how much we love them. My, I'm not perfect at all. I'm learning as I go along. And my youngest son read the dedication in the book that I had given him. And he goes, "Really? You think of me this way?" And I was like, "Yes, you didn't know that?" He goes, "No, I didn't know that you thought of me this way." So even he got something out of it. And that woke me up to, wow, I need to really ensure that he understands how special he is, what his unique qualities are. And so making sure that your kids know that.
I think that is so important. And I know, I get teased a lot because I'm kind of cheesy that way, but I wrote each of my children a letter. And I guess it's a love letter. I don't know how else to identify, how to describe it, but it is. It's just like, in this moment, you're so and so years old, open this when you're 18 or whatever.
Mhm.
And I think that that is something that is so simple to do.
That's a great idea. It's not cheesy. Even if they think it's cheesy, they won't when they're older, they read it back. I mean, that is awesome to do. This is where you are because we forget those moments.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bet you if you read it too, you'd be like, "Oh, really? At that time they were doing that?"
Yeah, yeah. And I
You
thought,
forget.
I just always, you have that fear, like if I travel or whatever, if something ever happens to me, I want them to know that I was their biggest fan and
Mhm.
still am. I mean, I
Mhm.
constantly, I know they're grown men now, but I think it's important you to know that you've got somebody in your corner unconditionally, no matter what. And I love to
Absolutely.
look at bullying like that, as far as, yeah, it's tough, but you do know you're loved.
Mhm.
And
It's
that's,
important.
yeah. Yeah, I love
It's
that.
so important.
Mhm.
And I mean, high school and, junior high and high school. I like to get kids when they're young because we want to stop it and build this before we get to junior high and high school. But when you're in that time, you feel like that this is just everything. And I don't remember a lot about high school. I don't know about you, but at that time, it feels like it's just your whole world, and it's not really. It's a blip in your life. What's more important is just what the experiences you had and making sure that those are good experiences. And part of that is having that healthy self-worth.
Yeah.
It's so important. But I'm going to take that idea and write them all a letter.
Oh, good.
I love that. I
Yay.
think it's important, and I think that they know it, but I'm their biggest advocate and biggest. I would drop everything in a second if one of our kids needed us or needed me.
Oh,
And
me
I want
too.
to make sure they know that too.
I think most of us moms are every mom probably listening to this is
Mhm.
going to be nodding their heads like, yeah, yeah. And I think it is so important to acknowledge our kids in a special way that they can take with them And I know that that is like the coaching, the things that you do as part of your passion to help people, right? And
Mhm,
you have what you call the Wonder Woman seminar that
mhm.
helps women unleash their power within, which I love this, by the way. I would you share some of those principles that moms who are listening can take along with them on their autism parenting journey?
I think that we all have what I call, I've kind of alluded to this, but our inner superhero traits, those things that make us unique. And what I teach is the self-confidence building tools you can use so that you do know that you're also special. And when you find that power
Mhm.
of your unique traits, you can use that to not only help yourself become more successful, be happy because life is way too short to live unhappily, and then use that to serve others. And we all have those traits. Those are the things that make us who we are. Those are the things that bring us joy. Those are things we're good at. We're really good at them. And for me, that's bringing peace to people. When I was being bullied, I would go home and watch Linda Carter on TV as Wonder Woman. And of course, that ages me, just like Breakfast Club does.
Me too. Me too.
That ages me a little bit, but Wonder Woman herself, she was created to bring peace to the world. And my name actually means God's gift of peace. And that is my goal. It is my sole purpose. It is my inner superhero traits is to bring peace to people so that they can live happy and find their self-confidence. So all my seminars really come together to find those inner superhero traits,
Mm, I
unique
love it.
traits.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny because in A Mother's Guide Through Autism, Joseph and the book that he and I wrote together, I talk about that too, about how we're all superheroes. And
Mhm.
I love that you're teaching that. I love that you are getting women to come together and find their superhero powers, motherhood being one of them, but we all have those innate gifts. And we're all so fortunate that yours is helping us find our own ways in the world. So, what a wonderful gift that you have.
Well, thank you. And I can't claim it's all my doing. My parents were very good role models. And I did lose my mom when she was 66, which was too young.
Mm.
And when I was standing at her funeral, there was standing room only. I looked up and I saw that there was standing room only. And I realized at that moment that she had this legacy of giving I didn't even know about. I'm loud. She was quiet. I'm loud like my dad. The Sicilian part of me. She was very quiet and she gave and gave, and so much so that so many people came to her funeral. And I realized that I wanted to continue that legacy. I mean, I've wanted to help people since I can remember, but how could I continue her legacy?
Well, she inherently gave that to you. Yeah, she sounds like a wonderful person, and she's probably listening to you right now.
I hope so. I hope they're
But I
seeing what I'm
think,
doing. And I do know that they're seeing what I'm doing and they're proud that,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that I'm able to continue that on. And hopefully my kids will do the same.
Oh, I have no doubt. Well, I know I met Jacob, so I do know he's truly has a powerful gift as well, just as you do. And as we talk, and I know you help moms, what are the biggest lessons that you'd like to share that you learned as a mom on this journey?
Biggest lessons. Know that you're going to make mistakes along the way and that you're doing the best you can with that education and experience that you have. Focusing on those mistakes and just living in that's not going to help you, but taking the lesson out of that and trying to do better next time. We're not perfect. Believe me, I have made a million mistakes along the way, but those mistakes have been able to allow me to grow and learn and hopefully use that to move forward and help my kids. So know that it's okay. The mistakes you made are okay. And just move forward and don't look back.
Yeah, I love that. I agree. Maya condensing Maya Angelou's quote, really condensing it and saying just know better, do better.
No better. I like that. Know better, do better. I love her. So
Yeah, yeah, me too. Another great lady. Is there anything else you would like to mention before we go? This has been a lovely conversation.
well, I appreciate you and thank you for having me on. I would just say that live in the present as much as possible, no matter how busy you are. Just sometimes you need to pause and take a deep breath and know that this too will pass and you can
Mhm.
get through it. We all have struggles, we all have challenges, but there's also good days and happiness and happy times. Take a deep breath and keep going. You've got this. And thank you for all you do. We, we're all needed here. We're all important. So thank you.
Well, it's all, and I say this a lot, but I mean it. It's absolutely my honor to get to have conversations like these with powerful, giving people like you. And I want, you know, people to know that they can reach out to you. Where can they find you?
Paxcoach.com, so PAX coach.com or innersuperhero.org.
Yeah. And go buy the book, right?
Please do,
Everyone
yes.
needs to go buy the book.
And it's available everywhere. So if you just put it in Google, if you have Amazon, that's great. If not, just put it in Google. It's available literally everywhere. I just did a Barnes and Noble signing, so it's everywhere.
Yay. Yay. I love that. And I, of course, have had several guests on Mother's Guide that I got to meet through that book. And so I'm going to keep trying to pass it along because I think it is worth the time, the effort, and the stories are so powerful. So I hope
Thank
folks
you
go
for that.
out and get it, the listeners. Thank you so much for being on Mother's Guide through Autism. I hope you'll come back because I feel like we have a lot more that we can talk about.
Anytime. Anytime. Thank
Great.
you.
If you enjoyed this episode of A Mother's Guide Through Autism, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and help us spread knowledge, hope, and inspiration. I will see you all in the next episode.